Make the man, then no one should be surprised at Phil Simms' recent sloppy handling of center snaps. Last Sunday, the Giant offense continued to unravel at the seams. Fortunately for New York, their defense was wearing a different look altogether. They came to New Orleans dressed to kill. Although number 70, Leonard Marshall, fumbled away this Lawrence Taylor-made opportunity for a turnover, the Saints did make amends by providing Marshall with a custom-fitted cough-up of their own. The Saints have been double-teaming the NFL's sack leader. When a safety blitz by number 48, Kenny Hill, left Marshall with a single blocker, the big defensive end strong-armed his way to his first career interception. While the Giants' defense kept a hold on the game, their offense discovered that when you hold on to the ball, it's a snap to score on the Saints. A Phil Simms to Bobby Johnson scoring toss and two Joe Morris fourth-quarter touchdowns gave New York a 21-6 lead. The Saints did put together a belated rally, but Dave Wilson's last-minute pass to number 84, Eric Martin, proved harmless, as the Giants prevailed 21-13. Maybe it is true that the clothes do make the man. When however shabby they appear, the Giants are 5-3, and they are clearly sporting the look of a winner. Last Sunday, Kansas City was the site of the 7th game of the World Series. Earlier in the day, the Chiefs were hoping that some of the Royals' competitive spirit would rub off on them. Unfortunately for the Chiefs, quarterback Bill Kenny experienced the same control problems as Cardinal pitcher John Tudor. Even when Kenny was throwing strikes, the Denver defense was there to bat them away. Like baseball's Redbirds, the Chiefs generated no offense, while their special teams committed the most errors as they allowed 2 blocked punts. In the end, it was the Broncos who wound up emulating the Kansas City Royals in toughness and resilience. Denver grounded out 206 rushing yards, and 2 Gerald Wilhite touchdowns paved the way for an easy 30-10 victory. The World Series, which put Missouri into the spotlight, was won by the Royals. But in Arrowhead Stadium, it was the Broncos, not the Chiefs, who captured the real spirit of the show-me state. Unlike the World Series, the outcome of a Seahawk-Jet game is usually easy to predict. The Seahawks had triumphed over the Jets in 7 previous encounters, and they appeared to be smoothly sailing towards number 8 when Dave Craig hit Darrell Turner on this 45-yard second-quarter scoring pass. Meanwhile, Jet quarterback Ken O'Brien, who was making his first appearance against the Seahawks, found out why his veteran teammates speak of Seattle and jinx in the same breath. Tipped passes are one thing, but O'Brien must have felt spooked when this sack on the Seattle doorstep netted the Seahawks 6 points. At the end of his 79-yard touchdown run, Jacob Green looked like a combination of William the Refrigerator Perry and a late finisher in the New York City Marathon. But like a long-distance runner who refuses to quit, the Jets, led by Joe Klecko, crawled their way back into the game. New York shut out Seattle in the second half, and their offense found its stride on the legs of Freeman McNeil, number 24. McNeil ran for 151 yards and added a touchdown reception. And with a little over 5 minutes remaining, Ken O'Brien capped the Jets' comeback by hitting Wesley Walker for the game-winning touchdown. The Jets prevailed 17-14, putting an end to the Seahawk Hex. More importantly, the victory gave New York sole possession of first place in the AFC East. A mid-season spot at the top that no one could have predicted. Coming off 3 straight losses, head coach Jim Hanifin and the rest of the St. Louis Cardinals wanted desperately to get back on the winning track last Sunday against Houston. With the help of a little engine that could, Stump Mitchell, number 30, St. Louis built up a full head of steam. A Neil Lomax to Pat Tilley touchdown gave the Cardinals an early 10-0 lead. But just as it had in the previous weeks, the St. Louis Express eventually derailed. Squandering leads must be contagious because the St. Louis Cardinals obviously caught the same disease that was infecting their baseball counterparts. Houston's 20-10 come from behind win increased its record to 3-5. Compared to last season, the 1985 Oilers are a much improved football team. A boast the Indianapolis Colts have also been campaigning to make perfectly clear. However, last Sunday, despite its youthful appearance, the Colts defense was unable to keep pace with its opponent. Indianapolis was granted a pardon of presidential proportion when number 85 Philip Epps stepped out of bounds during this run. Unfortunately for the Colts, the pardon was only temporary. While Paul Kaufman's first quarter touchdown catch deserved notice, Indianapolis proved more skillful in handling the issues of the day. Due to poor offensive performances in previous weeks, the Colts wouldn't fare well in any Gallup poll. But thanks to some creative campaigning against the Packers, Indianapolis significantly increased its popularity. Number 87, Wayne Capers, making his first start, scored 3 touchdowns. And Randy McMillan added another in Indianapolis's 37-10 win. By upping their record to 3-5, the Colts prove they have the equipment necessary to lick the competition. On the other hand, in Detroit, it was obvious the Lions' bark is much worse than their bite. Against the Dolphins, Eric Hipple was sacked 4 times, while Dan Marino threw for nearly 250 yards and 2 scores. Only when backed into a corner did the Lions finally show their fangs, as Hipple completed 14 of 19 passes, 3 of them for touchdowns. Number 86, Mark Nichols' 30-yard score put Detroit ahead 24-14 at the half. But in the third quarter, Miami set out to prove the Lions had bitten off more than they could chew. Bob Brodzinski's touchdown tightened the score to 24-21. However, that was as close as the Dolphins could get. Detroit's offense added a fourth-quarter touchdown, and the defense kept the lead secure. While the 31-21 defeat dropped Miami into second place in the AFC East, the 5-3 Lions became the first team ever to record back-to-back wins over the previous year's Super Bowl. Sunday, Cleveland's dog defense went from snarling to snakebit, and a young pup named Bernie Kosar demonstrated that he needs further training. Turnovers on the Browns' first two offensive possessions led straight to Washington's score. John Riggins tightened the leash on the Dogs and became the first back to gain over 100 yards against Cleveland since 1981. Joe Theismann also capitalized on a Browns blunder with a 19-yard scoring pass to Gary Clark, number 84. The two-touchdown deficit silenced the Dogs' bark but didn't diminish their bite. Cleveland shut Washington out the rest of the game, but managed only one score to wind up on the short end of a 14-7 Washington victory. While Cleveland is in the doghouse after dropping its second straight, winless Tampa Bay is in the outhouse. Jimmy Giles' fifth touchdown in 2 weeks gave Tampa Bay an early advantage, but for the fourth time this season, the Bucs squandered a halftime lead. New England took their cue as the Bucs took a dive, and Stanley Morgan's full gainer became the springboard for the Patriots' offensive explosion. While Morgan's dive did justice to Greg Louganis, it was running back Craig James who deserved a gold medal for versatility. James threw for one touchdown and ran for two more as he personally sank any hopes of a Buccaneer victory. The Patriots dominated 32-14 and left Tampa Bay drowning in a sea of frustration. If misery loves company, then the Bucs have found a companion in the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta jumped out to a deceptive 10-0 lead over Dallas, but the Cowboys hadn't hosted the Falcons in a regular season game for 15 years and wanted Atlanta to return home with an indelible impression of their trip to Texas Stadium. The league's most larcenous defense intercepted 4 passes and, bolstered by their unstoppable blitz, recorded 5 sacks. Dallas threw salt on Atlanta's wounds by unleashing Tony Dorsett. Dorsett's 60-yard sprint punctured the Falcon defense, and Danny White burst their bubble, throwing for 352 yards, the top passing performance of the week, to overwhelm Atlanta 24-10. With Tony Hill, number 80, the NFC's leading receiver, coupled with the fearless punch of Dorsett, the Cowboys are finally exhibiting the kind of offensive consistency that should keep them alone atop the NFC East. As to why the Bengals have managed only 2 wins. The visiting Pittsburgh Steelers shed some light on the subject by exploiting the Bengals' 28th-ranked defense. Cincinnati needed the seeing eye dog to locate the elusive Louis Lips, and they could have used a large leash to restrain him as well. Lips' 2 touchdowns almost applied the kiss of death to Cincinnati, but the Bengals found new life by forcing 6 Pittsburgh turnovers. Going into the contest, Cincinnati had reaped only 13 takeaways, but capitalized on their newfound opportunism with Robert Jackson's 57-yard interception return. With the 26-21 victory, Cincinnati achieved their first season sweep over Pittsburgh since 1981 and assured the Steelers of their worst start in 16 years. At 3-5, neither team has much to dance about, but Cincinnati may at least be emerging. The Philadelphia Eagles' offensive huddle used to feature duller conversation than the Regis Philbin show, but the once boring Eagles are bearing down on success. Last Sunday, however, Philadelphia's resurgence nearly hit a snag when the visiting Buffalo Bills zeroed in on Ron Jaworski and held the Eagles to 0 points through 3 periods of play. While the Eagles had looked like sluggers in consecutive wins over St. Louis and Dallas, they appeared sluggish against the Buffalo offense paced by number 83, Andre Reed's 2 touchdowns. Buffalo's 17-0 lead stood up for 3 quarters, but unfortunately for the Bills, a football game consists of 4 quarters. And after a tipped pass landed in the waiting arm of Wes Hopkins, number 48, the Eagles narrowed their deficit to 17-14. The Eagles were now poised to make their biggest comeback in 12 seasons. And with less than 2 minutes remaining, Jaworski connected with number 82, Mike Quick, whose backwards trot into the end zone moved Philadelphia forward to a 21-17 victory that provided further proof that a team that once provoked only yawns is now capable of providing thrills. In Los Angeles, they've got a defense that is big box office. And last Sunday, the sellout crowd on hand to see the Rams wage war on the embattled San Francisco 49ers discovered that LA's punt coverage unit is also capable of producing smash hits. But while the Rams' defense and special teams are as muscular as Sylvester Stallone, their 28th ranked passing offense is about as menacing as Liberace. Dieter Brock was sacked 4 times, and the 49ers, who entered this contest with the lowest takeaway total in the NFC, recovered a fumble and stole 3 passes. Number 33, Roger Craig, made the Rambo defense look like the Bambi defense, and the Niners scored touchdowns on 4 of their first 5 possessions. With nearly 200 combined yards in rushing and receiving, Craig assumed the NFC leadership in total yards from scrimmage. Craig's league-high 11th touchdown closed out a first half in which San Francisco scored 28 points against a defense that allowed just 89 in 7 games. The Rams ultimately went down to a 28-14 defeat. That was their first loss of the year. And while LA's defense might still recall Rambo, the Chicago Bears suggest the Elephant Man when 330-pound William the Refrigerator Perry swings his enormous trunk onto the field. Recently used as a running back, the rookie nose tackle had produced more pro touchdowns than sacks. But last week against Minnesota, Perry finally got to the quarterback for the first time in his career. Tommy Kramer was chilled by the Refrigerator and singed by number 95, Richard Dent, who brushed Kramer's arm just as he released a pass deep in Vikings territory. Number 55, Otis Wilson's interception return broke open what had been a tight 13-7 contest. And this wasn't the only wobbly throw that resulted in a Bears touchdown. Jim McMahon served up a knuckleball that would have made Phil Niekro jealous, but it fluttered into the hands of number 85, Dennis McKinnon, for 6 Chicago points. McMahon's second scoring pass of the game was delivered to number 34, Walter Payton, who also produced his 3rd straight 100 yards plus rushing performance. Another look at Payton's 107th career touchdown reveals that McMahon feathered this pass over a hard-charging Viking blitz. The Bears' 27-9 victory was prepared with their usual perfect blend of offense and defense. And that's why Chicago boasts a perfect 8-0 record at the midway point of the 1985 season.